Hey guys, I'm Kaylin, the author of The Parrot Bliss Bond and Get to Know African Grey and Cape Parrots. Get your copies on Amazon. And today, Zeus and I are going to bring you a little Halloween spooky story. Now, it is the story about Arturo, who is one of the characters in my novels. Hello from the Other Side. Episodes 1 and 2 are already published. And so this is not in the books. I'm not reading part of the book. This is like a supplement to it. So here comes your Halloween spooky story. I'll read to you while you can watch my grays. We'll see what they do. Hera has already disappeared. Right, Zeus? Yeah, here we go. Outside of rural Oaxaca, Mexico, just outside of the town, lived a 17-year-old young male named Arturo. Arturo was fortunate. He was a handsome rogue. He was full of piss and vinegar, and he was the eldest out of a family of 4. A family with a ranch, with horses. They had it all. Arturo had it all. However, one year his father died, leaving him as the head of the family. The head of the mother, the one in charge of the money. One day, some mysterious men approached Arturo. He was an easy target. They said that they really had it all. They said his money and his horses were nothing. Even his family name meant nothing. Arturo had thought his family name was everything. Still, while visiting Arturo at his house, they asked if they could have a shot of his best tequila. Arturo happily served up because he was curious. He already, at the age of 17, loved sleeping with his 3 girlfriends, loved going around town with his friends, even though his mom kept telling him that it was time to settle down, that he needed to run the ranch, because fortunately his dad had left a few ranchers in charge. But they were getting older, reaching their upper 40s. They were ancient, tired, antiquated, and ready to retire. But Arturo wasn't being necessarily responsible, and he was intrigued by these 5 men, all dressed in dark black clothes, which was uncommon in that day. There weren't a lot of ways to dye your clothes, especially black, in rural Oaxaca back in the 1400s. And these men had an air about them. They had something around them. When he looked carefully at them, there was something to them. When Arturo looked carefully at the men, he saw something to them. And they said, "Yeah, we can help you live forever." Arturo rubbed his chin and asked what they wanted in return. They said to him, "You know, it doesn't take much. There's no magic wand in this world," they continued. But the man talking held up his hand, and a red flame came out of his hand, his palm. He said, "The magic is inside of you. And if you come with us, we'll teach you how to do things like create this flame." Now Arturo nodded his head in agreement. Before he knew it, the flame jumped onto the house, burning it down. The whole ranch burned down. Of course, back in those days, in that kind of rural area, there's no fire rescue. Things just burn. Arturo actually passed out from smoke that was burning in the house. So the men took him, leaving his mom and 3 other siblings pretty destitute. Sure, they had some money in the bank, so they were kind of able to survive, but they certainly never knew what happened to Arturo or how the ranch had caught fire. There was never another word heard from Arturo. Now, on the ranch, there had been no candles allowed. No, they were super careful. Before Arturo knew it, a lot of time had passed. He didn't know how much time, although it felt like a lot of time, and he found himself further outside of Oaxaca, almost in a jungle, but almost an unknown land of some kind. He didn't know what direction was home. He didn't know anything. As he got up, he looked around. He felt like he might have been drugged for a while. Which was odd because there weren't a lot of drugs back then, but he was groggy, couldn't get a sense to himself. He then sort of recalled almost dreaming, in a dreamlike state, having seen the men using a pestle and mortar, crushing leaves. Maybe the tea that they had given him to drink had something in it because he just felt groggy, disoriented. And still, he came around and came more to his senses and saw the men. They told him he was ready to be initiated. Arturo was a little surprised and sort of thought that was funny and asked, "Where are we? What's going on? I don't feel so good." They told him it was nothing. He was fine and he could get himself ready because he was going to be initiated later that day. They told him to take the day. He could go outside if he wanted. Someone would bring him lunch a little later while they were going into the forest to get the things that they needed, not only for a celebratory dinner, but also for the ritual that they would be performing. In this space that Arturo was in, which was like a cave, like a rock cave, there was a fire in the far corner. There was a little table with some water, some books that they said he could read. They told him to do as he pleased today, to enjoy. They'd be back in a little while, and that was it. They left Arturo feeling very uncomfortable, insecure, which was very contrary to his personality. Arturo waited 10, 15, 20 minutes to feel like they had really gone. Then he took a deep breath and asked himself, what's really going on here? He started to rub his head because it really felt funny, close to his eyes, just blurry, just something going on in his head. So he tried to sort of rub it out, decided to get up and get a glass of water. Are you telling the story too? Yeah, that's helping. And sort of then flipped his head to the side to see what looked like a shadow wisping by. But, you know, in a dark cave room with no windows, just some light coming from the door, and the fire casting shadows, Arturo figured it was just the shadows on the wall, the flames dancing, until he saw it again. And then he thought he heard sort of a humming, but it started to grow louder. At that point, Arturo was again feeling weak and drained. He was sort of going, I guess I haven't eaten, but I don't know in how long. This young, muscular 17-year-old all of a sudden was feeling old, weathered, worn, thirsty. He drank some more water, but looking around the room suspiciously because his head sort of stopped but was pounding. His body was sort of cold but sweating at the same time. He looked around and there were shadows. He must be hallucinating. Had he been drugged? Because the shadows were dancing and they should be from the fire, those shadows cast from the fire, but they seem to have red eyes. But they can't be growing, he thought. And yet they were growing larger, taller. And there was one big one in the middle. Arturo's ability to perceive was not strong like it usually had been. His spatial ability, his visual abilities, his auditory abilities, all sort of melted and blended together as the shadow was coming off the cave walls and growing taller still, and whose little slits for red eyes began to open and become larger, round balls of fire. Arturo, of course, grew scared, shocked, now frozen, immobile. A buzzing in his ears and his body took over. Arturo was in a panic as he heard that shadow say to him, "Soy obscuro, I am obscuro, and you are going to assist me, my friend." That was the last thing Arturo remembered before he was surrounded by darkness. The light that he saw shrinking down, the darkness caving in. Arturo seemed to fall into a deep, deep sleep. Ale! A century went by. Arturo woke up and didn't know how he'd known that a century had gone by. He woke up and was in his town again, his home, kind of looking around, relieved, looking around and instantly seeing wherever he looked. Everything was clear, and as he looked across the room, he was instantly there, as though he had floated, as though he was flying. He looked down. Where there had once been legs, there was now just the remnant of a little light left behind, a hint of waves, a doodle of his old hands. He moved his hands, which bringing them up in front of him, and which left a trail behind him, or behind them. Arturo felt his body and realized it was no longer physical. There was something different about him. Now, Arturo realized that he himself had been transformed into an entity. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed my story. I had a spooky Zeus fly onto the back of my chair. Hi, Zeus. Again, that's Hello from the Other Side, available on Amazon. That is part of the story as to how Arturo became an entity. He is one of the characters, although he is not the main characters. If you get Hello from the Other Side, you will meet Maeve and Arsh, who are the main characters and are, in fact, alive and human. I hope you have a haunted Halloween and that your parrots don't get too spooked out. I will see you in the next Blissful video.